Hey, good. Just coming up lunchtime here in the UK. If anybody's joining me this Sunday, I hope you're not, because that means you're as wild as me here on social media. But the reason I'm doing this today is it's been a while since I actually narrated some of my blogs. For anyone that might be interested, I'm actually hosting all of my writing going forward on Medium. So if anybody's interested to follow that writing, touching things like vulnerability, culture, leadership, systems, etc., speaking very much from the heart, as Garry, certainly not on behalf of anybody else, then I'd love you to join me at medium.com/@Garry Thinking Partner. And what I'm going to do today is narrate one of my recent blogs. And the main reason for that actually is trying to improve the accessibility. So some people like to read, some people like to listen, some people like to listen while they're walking, whatever it is, just trying to make the content more accessible. And that's the main reason for going live today. If you happen to join me live, brilliant, do pop along, say hi, leave some comments, constructive challenge, you're welcome. But let's get into it today. Actually, if you want to connect with me, you can see there's a QR code in the top corner of me going live at the moment. If you just put your phone with the camera against that, you'll see a direct link to my V1CE business card, it's a virtual business card, or indeed just have a look at my Linktree, which you can find at bit.ly/hexo Linktree, one word. So let's get into the blog of the day, which is certainly an interesting one from my point of view as someone that still works within the center of the extractive global supply chain as it currently looks. So the blog today is how colonized is our thinking in Western business and what may be the impact. So what you can do, where I'm going live now, going to Twitter, YouTube, and LinkedIn. If you drop into the show notes at the bottom of this live, you'll be able to see the links back to this Medium piece that I'm about to narrate. So if you're curious. So in answer to that question, let me back up and offer some context behind this double question. So number one, when I'm talking as Garry about colonized thinking, what I'm talking about are the patterns of thinking that we've all been conditioned with, including myself, from the earliest days and years of our lives, to follow and believe as truth, such as the cult of busy and everything being urgent, the need to make everything perfect, binary either or thinking, and the suppression of any grey or quiet space, the need for qualification to evidence. Now, of course, if you want to know that your brain surgeon knows what they're doing, you may well want some form of qualification. But in many areas of life, qualification is actually a blocker, particularly to those that don't have access to education in the first place. For example, the right to comfort, especially for those who already have access, comfort and control. I am the only one or purveyor of the best way, the best practice. The big one is fear. So these are just a few examples of 18 cultural patterns, all clarified by the amazing work of Tema Oken for over 30 years. And indeed, one of my teachers, Heather Luna, continues to help me spot these patterns within and around myself on an ongoing basis. And that's of how our thinking and even behavior have been conditioned and thereby colonized. It's almost like it's not our thinking, it's somebody else's over the past 700 years. Yet we do not need to accept these patterns as truth anymore. That's my invitation today. So these patterns are water that we swim in. This is only quite a recent realization for me personally as Garry. We barely spot them as they're so pervasive and ingrained. And hence the invitation in this post is to stop, to breathe, to get present, and to notice these patterns within and around you, and to reserve any judgment of yourself or others as you do so. Point number two. My first live guest on my latest experiment. If you haven't seen it yet, it is decolonizing our minds through generative listening. And the first guest was amazing Trina Casey. And Trina brought so much wisdom, facts, and indeed insight for curious humans to have their own oh my God moments. You can check out our exploration below if you feel free. You can also support Trina's work. And all of these hyperlinks are directly linked to the Medium blog. Point number three. And this is really, these three things weaved and wrapped together are the seed for the blog today. So point number three, I put out a poll on LinkedIn a week ago. including a powerful post by Tricia McOrmond, to try and get a sense of how intentionally or not we in the West are seeking to break these patterns of thinking and behavior that we've been handed down to us in an organizational setting. So considering that work as we know it today is both one of the biggest causes of disconnection and harm systemically, and holds, as my dear friends B. Lorraine Smith and Shahana Chattopadhyay, I nearly got you right, Shahana, Chattopadhyay, assert, one of the biggest opportunities for mass healing and reconnection also exists within the workplace. So what you can now see is the original blog I put out. Zero judgment, truly intending to sense whether there's any decolonization and mindset work being done in the Western business redesign as of today. So there you can see the results. Number 4. Since I started writing this blog a few days ago, my friend and incredible regenerative writer and materiality innovator, B. Lorraine Smith, virtually penned this powerful Medium article, which adds further spirals and layers to actually what I'm writing today. And you can see that blog's called Money Can't Buy Reality. So I start with a reflective question on behalf of anybody watching live or listening back. Why should we bother discussing this topic, Garry? It's in the past. Now, honestly, I would have felt and said something similar until a few years ago as Garry. Honestly, I would have done. However, working as I do within an international sales, people and culture capacity within the global chemicals industry, an industry that touches literally every part of humanity and the environment as we know it today, and having received and continuing to receive guidance from Samantha Sapaya and the Possible Futures crew, and they are a global south to global south regenerative collaboration, it is clear that we are only starting right now to understand and experience the depths of impact of our disconnected accumulation and growth at all cost ways in the West. Weather systems to the extreme, just even look at Pakistan, it's horrific. Societal and political division to the extreme, and global supply chain collapse. And I write more about that at this hyperlink, should you be curious to go and hear more about that and my perspective from within and outside of industry. So none of this is new in the global south, and ironically, this is too often normal for them, and even abnormal as per the Pakistan floods, much of which has in fact been caused by us, or certainly seeded by us in the West due to our ways. So we are at an opportune point in time, that liminal space between two worlds, and we get to choose what happens next. And I've got Donna Jones in my head as I speak this part from a conversation we had before, in part individually, but also collectively. So I would assert that where we are in this moment is in part the impact of us not reimagining our Western organizational design, of not challenging our outdated mindsets continuously and iteratively over generations. And to be honest, why would we, when every educational establishment and book has been teaching us and telling us it's all about us, this individually and in the West for so long? So again, where I started, no judgment, not blaming anybody, ourselves or anybody else, but we are where we are. And based on that survey, which I'm coming on to, we're clearly still not doing the deeper work that we need to be doing in the workplace. So question, so how colonized is our thinking in Western business? So the above is only a small poll, but from over 700 viewers of the poll, only 8 votes were cast. And I remain curious, personally as Garry, if that is as people didn't want to have their name profile attached to the vote, because of course you get to see the person behind each vote. The question's also quite direct and provocative, so it may have turned people off, or maybe something else. Anyhow, what I do find super interesting is that of the 8 votes that were cast, the 2 that answered yes, decolonization and mindset are part of organizational design and development, were actually based in the global south. The 5 that answered no, decolonization and mindset are not part of organizational design and development, were based in the global north or in the West. Now, although this is only a small sample size, I do feel it's representative of the fact that Western business remains a colonized pursuit of more of the same: compliance, fear, reactivity, speed over presence, and more over enough. We are tweaking at the edges in the West. We are focusing on more agile ways, discussing more heart-based leadership, including DEI in a more meaningful way, etc. And I fully support, and I also espouse the same. But, and this is the big but, if we are not centering those most harmed by our Western ways by design, those humans and communities at the extremities of our business models. In sustainability, this would be like scope 3 emissions. In finance, they call them externalities, and just forget about them. We will just end up recolonizing the world, and then we all go down with the Titanic, yet us in the West with just a little bit more comfort as we go down. So let me share with you one current real-life example of how to reimagine and design incredibly well, inclusively, and with constructive challenge. So the Possible Futures crew, I've already mentioned them. There is no bias whatsoever offered here. This is literally experiential. So Sam, as I say, has been my systemic guide for a couple of years now. So although with a focus on sustainability, Sam and her crew at Possible Futures are midway through their pilot Intro to Decolonial Sustainability course, and being part of the journey as I am, both as a guest coach, but also as somebody traveling and learning as I go, I can confirm that this course is revolutionary, deep, challenging, inclusive, complex, accessible, not grounded in one right way. It's not founded on a range of models from a select few people. It is grounded in signposts and a compass, and not in fixed outcomes and a map. Now, the mix of people attending this course from both in-house and external contexts makes for a powerful melting pot of shared experience, open learning, and genuinely it goes beyond anything I've ever experienced. And in fact, I was actually hosting the first inter-cohort session last night for 2.5 hours, and just again the depth of insights was just absolutely incredible, totally mind-blowing. So you see, if ever are we centering those people and communities most impacted by so rarely, if ever, are we centering those people and communities most impacted by our Western ways. And indeed, I would assert that the majority of people that do not even realize that decisions happening in the UK or Europe are having a direct impact, some of it fatal, through complex and preferential Western finance, global supply chains run by Western multinationals, and manufacturing monopolized by Western multinationals. The net biggest impact always being on those people in Latin America, Southeast Asia, and Africa, those without a voice generally in Western organizational design development, I would assert today. Again, feel free to challenge. I love your thoughts. Well, I want to build on this conversation, but based on that indicative poll, I don't think anything I'm sharing now is out of sorts. So let me bring this to life further with a video that I recorded last year when I joined some dots between Western finance, my own pension, and oppression taking place in West Papua off the west coast of Papua New Guinea. I'll leave that for you to get curious about. The link again you can find at the blog, which is in the show notes. So am I saying that mining companies that know their operations in some way are connected to oppression taking place in West Papua should include this by design as they organize this business? Yes, categorically I am, 100%. So the days of keeping work separate from the rest of life to this deepest of levels are now gone. And I really see this as an opportunity. So how can we learn to better understand these real world impacts and hold these tensions whilst reviewing and reimagining how we design organizations feels super important. And it's my main reason for sharing this blog today. So I just want to go quiet, take a breath, and offer you, if you have watched this or listening this back, what are you feeling and what are your thoughts in this moment? I invite you not to push any away. I invite you not to run away from any thoughts or feelings you're having. Just sit in them, get curious about them. What's coming up for you? How do you feel? Do you feel anger? Do you feel curious? Do you feel frustration? Do you feel no way is that real? Yeah, all of that stuff is all okay. Like, just sit in it, process it. And I'd love to hear from you as to what that impact may have been so far. So the demographics of the people at the point of me, I think it's basically towards the end of the poll. As you can see, 55 people from management consulting viewed the poll, 54 from HR, 47 from chemicals, 38 from coaching, and 36 from IT. Now, when looking at that industry demographic, of the people that viewed this poll, I am curious that there was not more engagement, considering the critical role of organisational design and development, i.e. change and reorganisation in all of these sectors, but especially management consulting, HR, professional training and coaching. I'm curious what the thought patterns were of the people viewing this post. And indeed, did any of those conditioned patterns of behaviour, such as fear, right to comfort, etc., pop up when they saw the poll? If you was one of those people, please do reach out confidentially. Let's have a chat. I'd be really curious to know what the reaction was that may have decided whether or not you answered this poll today. Okay, in terms of the role of the people that looked at the poll, 20 were CEOs, 16 co-founder, 11 sales manager, 11 MD, 8 HRD, etc. So also of interest to me is that the role viewers held at the time, the poll viewers at the time of viewing is a really interesting smorgasbord across those different functions. So maybe this is why in part the results were lower, as maybe organizational development and design is rare in their day-to-day consciousness. Just an open inquiry that I have around this topic. Open question. Are you and I, are we collectively ready to take the steps to decolonize our thinking? What does that even mean for you based on what I've shared so far and what maybe you thought about decolonization, if it even came into your vernacular or experience of life before this blog? So we are where we are. There's no blame or shame for the majority of us to hold. I've processed a lot of that over the last few years, I can assure you. But there is an invitation here to get curious, to ask way more questions of yourself and of your organizations. To reflect and to check in with the patterns of colonized thinking that pop up most often within you and those around you. A reminder to have a look at Tema Okun's work, again, the hyperlinks in the blog on Medium. As I said in the poll, there is no judgment here, just curiosity and a desire to reimagine work alongside Lorraine and Shahana's vision that a decolonized workplace can be a force for good and for healing, but for all, not just for us in the West. So what now? One practical invitation I have for you, direct from my heart and my experience of life, is I recorded the Value Through Vulnerability podcast, which now houses over 138 episodes, 175 episodes in total, which ended a 2.5-year project exploring the depths of our humanity around topics such as vulnerability, listening, DEI, culture, leadership, and much more. I shared the context in a recent LinkedIn post below, where you can also find the various platforms if curious in the comments. And that's it. Shall we connect? My name is Garry Turner. And just to remind you, and I'm going to be reminding everybody of this because so many people, it's so funny. So many people keep saying to me, hey, Garry, how do you fit it all in? How do you work your full-time job and do this stuff on the side? To be honest, I've been a bit scattergun. I've not really been very, very clear to people, but now my integration is clear. So I'm Garry Turner and I work in international business development, authentic relationship building, human working within and across a 3 billion turnover corporation. I'm an international speaker on topics such as human-centered design, vulnerability and change as an inside job, other very deeply human topics. I support senior leaders and mission-driven solopreneurs as a thinking partner. I'm a facilitator of people-centered workshops and organizational design. And also I'm the co-creator with Joe Hompstead of human development spaces, in-person gatherings, which are emergent and co-creative spaces for both in corporate and open groups. So if this is at all interesting, do reach out. You can find the blog on Medium. I really appreciate. Oh, lovely to see you, Amara. Yeah, fascinating. Love to have a chat about that again at some point. Yeah, huge topic in humanitarian sector. And I think that's a really critical point, right? We need to see anything that touches human beings and life more widely is a humanitarian endeavor. Climate change, social justice, survival, the Pakistan flood. Like, how can we not look at any of this as being anything but humanitarian? The problem is we are so dehumanized in the workplace more generally because of these patterns of behavior that we keep handing down and perpetuating. We've got a massive opportunity to unlearn those patterns, to help one another break down those patterns. So again, check out Tema Okun's work. Don't worry about the white supremacy pit. Please don't get hung up on that. It's brilliant, brilliant work. Over 30 years of work by Tema Okun, helping us really explore those patterns of behavior that we have around fear, urgency, binary thinking, etc. And I hope you'll join me again as I narrate another one of these blogs sometime soon. I'm going to attach this to the blog on Medium. And take care, be safe, have a wonderful rest of your Sunday. And yeah, stay curious. Stay super, super, super curious is my invitation. Take care for now. All the best.